Well, yeah, like I said, really excited to talk to you about F9. Already was a highly anticipated movie, but only even more so now after the last, year plus after that first trailer dropped. What's it been like for you, kind of the wait for this? Like, that trailer drops, everyone's like, oh my God.
Han is back and that Dom Toretto has a brother. So you get all of these questions and all this excitement, which is traditional around the release of a fast film and all this buzz. And then we grab and hold on to the e-brake. And now we're in a stop down. I think the crew at Fast have put together a tremendous trailer that has revitalized everybody and got that energy and that buzz. That compounded with the fact that we're in, we're making great strides to a more safer, responsible environment. And it does seem as if we're ready to go back and enjoy cinema again. And I couldn't think of a better vehicle, absolute pun intended, to get people to come together. This movie is about family. This is a blockbuster movie. It delivers everything you'd want in a night at the movies and kind of symbolizes what going to the movies is all about. It gets people from all different walks of life together to be entertained and go on a zany adventure.
But we've been starting each of these episodes by, quoting those famous words of Dominic Toretto. He lives his life a quarter mile at a time. For those 10 seconds or less, he's free. How would you sum up F9 in 10 seconds or less?
Absolute blockbuster. It delivers on everything that you'd want out of a cinema experience. It needs to be seen in theaters, and I'm so glad we can go back and see it in theaters.
We've been waiting since, even more than 2 Super Bowls ago. It's, since the minute we knew this was coming. Before we dive into the kind of the present of Fast and Furious, I want to go back to a simpler time. I actually ended up, I interviewed you for Blockers back in March 2018. And we were talking and I told you, I was like, there was a Fast and Furious joke in Blockers. And I had told you, I was like, I can't not now picture you in a Fast and Furious movie. Like, we need that to happen. And, you said, it's like, obviously that's out of my control, but like, that would be a dream come true. Now, here we are. You've made a Fast and Furious movie. Not only have you made one, you are a Toretto. Like, what's it like knowing that dream came true?
I first guess I have to thank Ike Barinholtz and Leslie Mann. They joked about the Fast and the Furious, and what a great parody that was. They tried to channel their inner Dom Toretto and it went horribly wrong, and it made for some good laughs. This is all surreal, man. All of it. It's a dream come true, and it's such a life-changing opportunity. And to be invited, I've never had anything like this. To be invited in a legacy body of work that is already tremendously successful and the world already anticipates. I really put my heart and soul into this, and I'm very, very proud of what's going to show up on screen. But this movie is a success without me. And that's a testament to the cast and crew that have spent 20 years forging this legacy. I don't take that lightly. The invite has weight and it has tremendous perspective. I really hope everyone sees the movie and thinks my contribution did justice to the legacy that's Fast.
I think people are absolutely going to be satisfied and excited to see you in this film. And saying it was a dream really implies to me that you sound like you were a fan of the films before that. So what was your relationship to the Fast franchise before? Were you seeing the movies and dreaming of being
It's weird. In kind of growing up and evolving as the Fast franchise has, I kind of grew up and evolved with it. I was drawn initially to the first one and Tokyo Drift because I'm a car freak. So it captured my heart when it went after the zeitgeist of the tuner market, the import market, pitting American muscle versus tuners, the whole street racing philosophy. I love cars. And to me, that's what 1 and 3 kind of signified. I still think one of the most powerful scenes in the franchise is when Dom pulls up at the end of Drift. And because, as a viewer, you think, 1 was a movie. 2, they went in a bit of a different direction with a different narrative. And then 3, they chose another different direction. So you're kind of thinking okay, is this it? This is the end. This is how it's going to end. To see that one scene at the end of Drift is this is far from over. And then after that, the franchise kind of took on a life of its own to be more global, to be more action-based. But then again, I was kind of traveling a similar path, trying to be a global entertainer. Right. So I can understand the moves the franchise made and the fact that it grew and it's bigger now than it ever's been. but I'm more partial to the ones, we all have our reasons for following. I'm more partial to the ones that focused around cars. That is really fun for me to see.
Did you get to participate? Like Vin told us they always audition the cars. Did you get to participate in that at all? Or did you just sort of show up and it was chosen for you?
So I think those who can weigh in on what they drive, that's probably a seniority seat. For somebody to be like, hey man, you're going to be in F9 and here's the keys to a car. It could have been, for lack of a better term, and pardon my French, a shit box. I would have got in and drove it and tried to drive the wheels off. So I didn't want to overstep my bounds and kind of stay in my lane respectively, but I'm very glad with what I got to drive and what I got to see on set.
Take us back to, so obviously you're a fan, but like when this opportunity comes your way, like how was it presented? Like what was your reaction to it? Because I know like shortly before it came official, you know, you met with Vin and he kind of put it out into the universe that maybe before it was fully real. So like, just take us back through the whole process of it coming your way and you eventually, you know, becoming Jacob.
Yeah. So I was scheduled to meet Vin for a conversation and I met him. He has a gym that is dedicated to fast that he uses to motivate himself to kind of prepare to be Dom. And we just started talking, man. You know, we just started talking about life and our values and perspectives, and that morphed more into conversations about the movies. And we're just talking like two human beings, but inside. One, it's the first time I've ever met Vin Diesel, so this is crazy. Two, I'm kind of also talking to Dom Toretto and like, what the F is going on? And then afterwards, he kind of welcomes me, like not afterwards, during, he kind of puts on his phone and kind of welcomes me into the family, but doesn't. And I just don't know what's going on. And I never expected anything more than to sit down and talk with a dude whom I admire. I admire his body of work. I think the film sends wonderful messages. You know, he's entertained the world for 20 years. Me, like I said, as an entertainer, that's somebody I can learn from. That's somebody I can, you know, gain wisdom from, just share perspectives that maybe other people can't in a certain conversation. I thought it was a great time. And then from that to where we are now, like, it's crazy. It's Dom Toretto. Like, I literally remember seeing The Cross for the first time. I'm like, what's going on? It's just, it's otherworldly. I couldn't imagine it.
What's it like when, you know, I think even in that video, and he said it since, he kind of, you know, referenced Paul. He's like, he almost felt like, you know, Paul, you know, sent you his way, which is like obviously someone who was a fan of the franchise and knows how important Paul was to it. When you hear him say something like that, like kind of what does that mean to you?
So, I mean, it's really difficult to conceptualize something like that. I never had the chance to meet Paul. I don't know what the relationship between everyone was, but man, the outpouring of emotion for this individual that had such dedication to the franchise, to his craft, to fans, to cars. It's not lost on me. You know, the invite itself comes with expectations. When someone who was close to a member of the Fast family, so loved and so admired, brings up that and puts that in perspective, you immediately no days off. Like there wasn't before, but immediately it's like, okay, man, please, even on those days that are tough and you wake up on the wrong side of the bed, leave it all in the lens. And there are now tremendous expectations set on your shoulders. And that's the way I like it. But I mean, what an unbelievable thing for someone to say. It's surreal. It's very difficult to conceptualize.
At the same time, too, like first you get not the comparison, but the invocation of Paul. And then also you're brought in and find out you're going to be a Toretto. Like that's like double whammy of sort of pressure and also faith in you. So when did you find out exactly like what character they wanted you to play? And what was your initial sort of reaction to that? So
things kind of got shot out of a cannon after that meeting with Vin, and they started moving real fast. They announced to me that I would be in the family, and they sent me the script, and they said I would, you know, they wanted me to specifically read Jacob. And you read very early on that Jacob is a Toretto. So I'm not getting invited to the franchise to be a standalone character or a character that needs to be developed. The last name alone is going to let viewers around the world ask questions. Like, it's already teed up. So not only are you getting an invite to this globally successful brand and franchise that, like I said, with or without me, they're going to crush. I get to be a Toretto. And yes, there's a lot of leaning into that story in F9, which is fantastic. But even if they don't, like, that's set up on a tee. It couldn't be more perfect. But once again, it also comes with tremendous expectations.
Yeah, I remember talking to Justin when the trailer came out, and he's like, I was really, when we came up with the idea of introducing like an exploring family actually through bloodlines for the first real time, like I was really excited. But then he's like, I woke up the next morning, I was like, oh, I was like scared shitless. I was like, who's going to be a Toretto? So what were those conversations like with Justin, and like kind of try to figure out like, how do I become a Toretto?
So I have the greatest sources of wisdom and perspective to sit under, Justin and Vin and the rest of the cast. Like, it wasn't, this isn't like a spin-off film where I'm a Toretto by myself. This really, I got to sit with the people that created this and have been heavily involved in crafting it. And from Justin's perspective, someone who really found their way back to the franchise because they wanted to tell all these stories and tie up all these loose ends. In that regard, it wasn't really challenging. It was more fun to explore the dynamic between brother versus brother, to talk about possibly the backstories. I mean, that's all creative stuff that you could go on and on and on about. But I guess basically my point is I was put in the most informative, welcoming, encouraging environment that I could have possibly been put in, with the heartbeat of Fast and Vin, and someone like Justin who found his way back to the franchise because it's a story he desperately wants to tell. I couldn't have been in a better situation creatively.
I mean, Vin's someone who really he thinks a lot about these characters. I mean, you mentioned like his garage and like kind of like helping him get in the mindset of Dom. So I'm sure he had a lot of thoughts about these brothers and this relationship. So like, obviously you guys had a great relationship, but what was those conversations like with Vin specifically about trying to discover who these brothers are together and separately?
It was great. Like I said, Vin has all the wisdom accrued of 2 decades worth of investing into this. I completely understand his perspective and his methods because for 20 years, I'm John Cena. And you do need a chance. You know, there is a normal human being. There's a person underneath every persona. You do need a chance to kind of just get up to speed as that persona. And we all have our different methods. But Dom is somebody so universally recognized. I ball cap, a jorts and a t-shirt. I know what that's like. So I totally get the perspective and the process and all that. When it came down to conversations, it would start with like a wide range of talking about my family, talking about his family, talking about what do we think fights in families are? What do we think reconciliations in families are like? Why do people do this? Like all these open-ended questions. And then we would just begin to cleave off sections and narrow down and narrow down and narrow down. And as someone who's trying to hone my skills as an actor, I mean, I really do feel comfortable in a WWE ring. That's kind of where I got my 10,000 hours. I'm still very much a rookie in this. To be able to be a wingman or sit under the learning tree under that creative process, it just makes me better. He completely made me better.
At the same time, talking about like being in the WWE ring, you're used to performing stunts and stuff, but then you get on like this huge fast set, and you've done other action movies too. Is there like a moment where you sort of have to adjust to seeing it on the script, and then you get there and it's like, oh, I got to perform this thing that's like high in the air, or these card tricks or anything like that? What is that like?
No, I never would. And action in film is so much different than live action performance. It's, in WWE, it happens as it happens, and there is no going wrong because right. You see what you see. In film, not only if something isn't perfect, you continue to attack it until it's perfect, but when it's perfect, you then have to attack it from multiple angles. So it is arduous, and you are beat up because it is not just 30 minutes of action, and that's a long performance in WWE. I'm working with people who make what's on screen like the mythical seem every day. So when they say, hey, we're going to do this and we need you and we're going to do this and you're going to sit this one out, pal, I completely trust like all second unit, all stunt performers. In fact, they're literally the best. What they do is unbelievable. So it's two very different attitudes. I'm still kind of adjusting to the way action is done in film, but I understand it. And that was something I struggled with early on.
Is that something that you get help to from the other cast members as well? Like, because they've done all of this over and over and gotten bigger with the franchise. Did they have like tips and stuff for you or I don't know, any advice?
Every day on set. And when we got to hang out offset, when the cameras weren't rolling, and this is obviously pre-pandemic, those were the most special times because everyone in the, like I'm the new guy. So I'm just kind of eyes and ears open. And even when we're hanging out, like when Vin gets everybody together, every person made it a point to come up to me, to ask questions, to tell anything that was on their mind. And I love conversation. So I really held those moments close. And there's a bunch of different personalities on set. There are people who are more intrinsic. There are people who are more extroverted, but every single person put it upon themselves to spend time with me and to put into perspective what was going on, where they held this body of work in their mind and in their heart, and moving forward, hoping we can make it the best we can. And I think that's what the common goal that everyone shares. You have all these diverse personalities from different walks of life, but they all just want to make a great movie. What's
it like? You talk about all these conversations you had with Vin or Justin, but for yourself in preparing to play Jacob, like obviously Dom is such a larger than life character. We've been watching him for 20 years. So coming in as his brother, like, did you feel like you had to be like Vin at all or like Dom, or was the whole point of the character being, kind of totally different, that kind of the yin to his yang? Like as you're preparing just on your own, what were your thoughts in that way?
So, like I said, creativity is an open process. It's kind of like making soup. Everybody has their own recipe. Mine was to take chances and not be afraid, and then listen to the feedback I was given. If I took a chance on a personality trait or a reaction or a delivery of something that I thought was, this is what I think I'm reading, and then they say cut. And if Vin or Justin or whomever comes over and be like, okay, great, could you try this? Or what do you think about something like this? I wouldn't marry myself to that one concept just because it was my perspective. I think there's a lot to be learned in life, looking at similar instances from different perspectives. And I got to hand it to Justin, Vin, and everyone else. They allowed me that room to take those chances. I was first introduced to that kind of concept, not only in a WWE ring where you get to improvise, but Judd Apatow and Amy Schumer were very instrumental in allowing me to improvise and take chances. A lot of the stuff I did was not funny, but out of all the not funny stuff, they got about 6 minutes of good laughs. So like it was their encouragement to be like, just go for it. And that same sort of environment, that same sort of protective environment is in Fast. They allow you to go for it, but they also, it's open dialogue of like, hey, this was my perspective. Explain yours. There's a lot of open conversation about what we're trying to achieve.
For this, you also talked about, I know in the past you talked about you get to play like good guy roles and stuff. And this is the first one, I think, where you're like pretty firmly set up as an antagonist. So does that change how you approach things as well? Or do you still start from the same place of like, Jacob clearly believes in what he's doing and then kind of work backwards? How does that work for you?
That's a great question and a great perspective. I've told the live action story of good versus evil for a long time. And as a good guy, even amidst polarizing audience reaction, you still have to understand the main characteristics of a good guy. And to understand that, you also have to understand the main characteristics of what you want out of a bad guy or, an antagonist. And I believe the most important thing to the antagonist is they believe what they're doing is right and everyone else is wrong. Universally accepted of like, what does this person think they're doing? But this person has truth and enough truth to their argument to justify their actions, but they are doing harm. And they're the only ones that can't see that, and everyone else can. So I started there of what I'm doing has purpose and has truth behind it. Just everyone else is wrong and they don't see it. And that was a good place to start, and then kind of working backwards to provide what I thought was needed to be a good antagonist.
I kind of appreciated that. It felt like a nice contrast to the first movie, where it's like, Dom's kind of set up as the bad guy, in that first film. And, obviously he doesn't view himself that way. And by the end, he's not either. But for you, coming in as this literal like blood rival, why did you think Jacob felt like the perfect test at this point for Dom?
So first of all, what a cool perspective on a 9-film character arc. And I think that's like what's really special about Fast. If you've never seen a Fast movie before, you can go to F9 and be blown away. And like, you won't be scratching your head about like, I don't get it. What are they doing? You'll just go and have a fun blockbuster ride and enjoy the movie. But if you want to take a look at it, like you're looking at it, like, wow, it's taken an arc of 9 movies to kind of come full circle with Dom. But is this what they were up to all along? Like, have they written this tale? It's really cool to dive into that. And that's where I think Vin and somebody like Justin are really special, because they don't leave those ropes hanging. They try to tie everything up so you as the viewer can get as invested as you want. And I think the juxtaposition between personalities between Dom and Jacob is extremely important. And to me, the subtext of Dom's greatest obstacle is his past. I think that there's something huge there, and there's something that can be taken away from, heck, man, a lot of stuff that holds us back in life is our inability to jump. And a lot of the inability to jump comes from us not being able to admit what happened in the past. And I think that there's a lot to unpack there if you want, or if you just want to go out and watch a great action movie, you can do that too. So,
yeah, I remember Vin telling us, he's like, we were talking to him about the first movie, and he's like, the cool thing is like F9, you're gonna be able to understand that first movie even more after F9, which, like he says, kind of mind blowing. 20 years later, you're like, this is like the ultimate long game that they pulled off. And, when I say they've been doing this for 20 years, like we're literally at the 20-year anniversary. So you've talked a lot about how great the family was welcoming you in, but what's the challenge in? They know these characters so well, Vin, Michelle, Jordana. So you're coming in and you're still trying to figure out who Jacob is, like what makes him tick, all of those things. So what's it like, kind of working opposite them in that way? And like I said, obviously it sounds like they were really helpful.
They were tremendously helpful and easy, because I'm not starting from scratch, and everyone could give an anecdote about, or most everyone could give an anecdote about how this character had affected their backstory. And these are thoughts that they've only had to consider just recently, because Jacob was just brought into the fold just recently, but every one of them is so into it that they would offer like, well, we ever considered that this happened, or maybe something like this. And that spawns a whole new track of thought to explain the behavior that's written in the words. And everyone was super helpful.
The fans were all excited when we're like, oh, she's going to be back. Cause obviously she wasn't in Fate of the Furious for obvious reasons, but it would have felt weird if like the other, cause it's like, this is Dom's brother, but this is also Mia's brother as well. I feel like when the trailer came out and it's like, oh, that moment of, Letty revealing that, Jacob is Dom's brother, very great dramatic moment in the trailer, the pause that we get. But what would you say? Like, obviously everyone's like, man, this guy is obsessed with family. Like how have we never heard about, this long lost brother? Again, we'll get the answers out there, but like for people coming in that are like, wait, what the heck's going on? Like, how would you kind of tee that up for them?
Oh, sure. I think, and this is something that if you've never watched a Fast film before, Fast has done so well in its 8 installments. And I think this is the reason that it continues to grow and have reach around the world, is that even in the very first one, it approached the concept of family are those people that you love. They don't necessarily have to have your last name. They're the people that you love, are loyal to you, you're loyal to them. You all have the same purposes and values, and you can come from all different walks of life. When you watch the first Fast, this is a film that literally heralded inclusivity and diversity they were really early adapters to those philosophies. And it wasn't forced. It's like super organic because of the nature of street racing culture. It brings everyone together. Car culture essentially brings us all together because it's something that cars and transportation affect all of our lives. So this franchise that was built off of street racing culture was, whoever knew it was going to blow up to be something like this really did embrace inclusivity and the concept of family are those closest to you. And I think film after film after film, barbecue after barbecue, that's the important concept of being thankful to have people around you that you love, trust, and believe in, and that believe in you. To me, that's a super important concept of the film.
So with F9 and Suicide Squad and Vacation Friends, like you got a lot lined up right now. And have you even had time to fully like fathom just like how crazy this next few months, next year is going to be for you, and like people seeing you all in these big projects? Like what are you feeling, I guess, right now on the cusp of all of these releases?
Thanks for asking. That's an interesting perspective. I always try to be as present as I can. And there's not a day goes by where I don't take at least a moment in the day and realize how lucky I am and how fortunate I am. And I really just try to do the best I can with every opportunity. I think my past work speaks for itself. I'm very passionate and dedicated to things I choose to apply myself to. There'll be a whole lot more failures than there will success. And that's just the nature of human existence. We go through a lot more hardship than we have high points. I hope all these things go well, and we'll release them to the world. And how they're accepted, we'll craft the next series of opportunities, and then I'll go from there.
We say how long this cast has been together, but it also feels like Fast loves to bring someone in and kind of let them cook. Like, like The Rock shows up in Fast 5 and you're just like his intro is legendary. I watch it every time. I die laughing. I'm so pumped.
We find them, we take them as a team and we bring them back. And above all else, we don't ever let them get in the cars.
Jason Statham for 7, Charlize Theron for 8. So like you're coming in here and it feels like you're adding this new energy like they did. Like it's like this new jolt. Did you kind of look at it that way too? Like obviously you're coming in and you're like, I'm part of the family. This is their thing. They've been here. But do you also kind of look at it from that perspective too, that you can bring this maybe, new energy to it?
Yeah, I think so. Like I said, this movie is a success without me. So I think understanding that and having a great understanding of Fast is going to be Fast. It's not going to be, nor does it need to be, the John Cena show. That really allows me to contribute to Fast the best I can. And like I said, it allows me to take chances and be bold and be the best Jacob Toretto that I possibly can be. I really looked at this opportunity not trying to change the world, because the world isn't broken. I'm trying to add to it. I'm trying to make a contribution that adds to the success of the franchise. And whether that's just for standalone F9 or whether it has a future, that's beyond my control. But I got a chance, and I really think I did a good job understanding of what the opportunity was and the perspective that I should take. And hopefully everybody enjoys.
You mentioned earlier the kind of the significance of the chain, like when you saw the necklace for the first time. So was it like you see it on Vin, and he's wearing it, but then what happens when you put that on for the first time and you're like staring down at Vin as Dom on set? Like what was that? Take us back to that moment.
Man, it's tough to put that into words. Someone who isn't dedicated to the franchise and isn't a long follower doesn't understand that. But I just ask them, and maybe trying to send a message to people who can't conceptualize that. Think of the thing you're the most passionate about. Think of the thing you're the most dedicated to. Think of the show or the form of entertainment, music or whatever. Think of the pinnacle of that. And then in your first chance, in your first opportunity, you come face to face with the pinnacle of that which you are passionate about. And you are given a relic that defines that pinnacle, and you are treated as equals, or in some cases greater than, in your first chance. Surreal. I always compare everything to WWE. That would be like face to face with The Rock, face to face with Undertaker, face to face with Vince McMahon, and them being worried. Like that just doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. It was surreal, man.
From our perspective, I can just tell you, just seeing it, even in the trailer, like it's awesome and it makes total sense and it just felt right seeing it. I wanted to go back really quick because Derek mentioned, of course, like bringing in other characters, and there is at least like a little bit. We get a tiny view of you and Charlize Theron's character. Like, don't really obviously know what kind of totally unfolds there, but what also was it like working with her?
That was a very special experience. She is tremendously gifted and is a person who is on another level in aspects of performance. Being able to work with someone like that, I've worked, and I'm so sorry that I talk about WWE so much, but I kind of am on. I feel I'm on like a similar learning trajectory. I got to work with a lot of experienced performers in WWE, and that's how I gained my instincts. And I just shut my mouth and listened. And I took the same sort of learning tree approach with everyone on Fast, but Charlize especially is like just so talented. And just being around her when she does her thing makes me better. Like, that's how good she is. I just have to sit there and shut up and let her perform. And by me being associated with that performance, it makes me better. And also in doing so, I could learn a tremendous amount from watching her perform. It was, what a luxury that was.
It's kind of insane. Like, you know, we know the usual cast in these movies, but then every time I think about, like, wait a minute, Charlize Theron, Helen Mirren, and Kurt Russell, like, are in this movie on top of everyone else. It's real insanity. And what I love about Charlize in these movies, like, she knows the movie she's in. You know what I mean? Like, she can go do all sorts of different things, but she doesn't show up like doing, you know, what she would do in, you know, some, you know, Oscar, you know, bait type movie. She's like, I'm in this action movie, and like, this is how I fit into it. Which is obviously the sign of a great actor. You mentioned coming face to face with The Rock. You don't seem like someone who comes in and is like, you know, making requests and, you know, being like, oh, I'd love for my character to do this. But like, have you like put your toe in the water of like, oh, what about, you know, maybe Jacob and, you know, Hobbs have a quick run in somewhere down the road?
No, man. Like I said, I don't even know if Jacob's future is uncertain, and that's completely up to the audience. The one thing that Fast does extremely well is they listen to their fans. I think Justice for Han is a great example of that. Like, they listen to the global fan base. So there's no way for me to even start. It would be such a waste of time and effort and energy and planning expectations that could ultimately just be letdowns. I just want to enjoy the now. And for me, the now is, you know, I've had to wait patiently, as we all have. F9 is finally coming out in theaters, and this thing finally is real. If Jacob Toretto is F9 and that's it, still, what an awesome thing, you know, to be able to grab the wheel of an automobile in a Fast and Furious franchise and be on screen doing that. Like, that to me is what's in front of me and what's important. And I'll let those who make those decisions figure out where the story goes after.
I mean, you mentioned the fans, and so are you nervous at all at how people will react to Jacob? Like, because obviously this is, you know, he's coming into the family and causing some trouble.
Yeah. So I learned from a very wise man a long time ago. You know, I've had some fortunate circumstances, but I've also had a lot of setbacks. And during one of those major setbacks, somebody who I consider a mentor and a father figure explained to me. He asked me two questions. He said, did you do the absolute best you could? And my answer was yes. He said, did you promote the absolute best you could? I said, my answer was yes. He said, well, what else can you do? You know, if I've given everything to the lens, absolutely everything, moments of embarrassment, humility, vulnerability, and let Justin, Vin, and those people who craft the narrative take what I gave them and try to make it the best I can. I love the movie. So I've done my best. I patiently waited. And now it's time to tell everybody about it and get that Fast buzz back in the air and get people excited to go in the cinemas. And if they see it and they ain't ready for it, it's nothing. There's really nothing more I can do.
That makes a lot of sense. I mean, you mentioned, early on, you being a big Tokyo Drift fan. So what's it like? You start reading the script and you're reading it for Jacob, and then you find out, wait a minute, Han's coming back too? What? Like what? That for you as a big Tokyo Drift fan, that had to blow your mind.
I certainly, I'm not in the business of spoilers, but there's a whole lot more in the movie as well. Like it's a really fun ride. The whole thing is just a really, really fun ride. And like I said, if you're walking into a Hollywood blockbuster and you have no experience, I think you're going to have a great time. And if you know the franchise, it's a super fun ride, man. And to see in the trailer, Han come in with his bag of snacks, man. Oh man, that's a moment. That's a moment.
Did you get to spend time with Sung Kang? Because he's huge into cars also, and also like told us a lot about how the Fast franchise gave him a lot of access to more in car culture. So if you talk to him about that and like what you guys could get into from here, even just hanging out.
So the repeated message you hear about Sung is he's an amazing human being. And I'll absolutely be another person that relays that message. He's kind, he listens, he's empathetic, he offers support, and he loves cars. So it was really good to interact with him. It was only brief, as you'll see in the movie. It's not a lot of interaction, but he really is a really good person to talk to, and has a tremendous story. And once you find out all that stuff, you're even more glad that he's back. Like, yeah, man, that absolutely justice for Han. So it was that was a multi-layered approach, and the more you get to know him, I think the more you appreciate it.
I've been telling people about, when I remember watching the trailer, and, this is back when we could actually be in offices, and, I had my headphones in, I'm watching the live stream from the Super Bowl. And first off, they reveal you're, Dom's brother. I lose my mind. And then, you said Han comes in just snacking, and I literally I have my headphones in, I stand up, I'm like screaming. And then I look around and everyone's just staring at me because they have no idea what I was doing. So yeah, that moment just in the trailer, as I tell Justin, I can't believe they put that much in the trailer. But as he keeps promising, we have even more, still to come.
And then when they dropped the second trailer, I watched it thinking okay, are they going to give away too much? But the second trailer is just as riveting, just as exciting, just as charged. There's still so much movie left, man. There's still so much movie left.
Oh my gosh. So, getting excited just talking to you about it. But you said, back, right, maybe 2009 period, you were like, okay, I'm just not doing movies again. You just did, in your mind, you didn't think it worked out. And it was maybe obviously it was part of the WWE kind of model. So does that give you some extra kind of gratitude, knowing where you are now, looking back to where you were in 2009?
Let's just throw this out. I've been given a second chance at the movies. Who the hell gets a first chance? What's going on? And like I said, I'll have a lot more failures than successes. So when I began to pursue roles, and the initial roles that I found more riveting were comedy roles that I could spoof myself and show another side of myself that I haven't been able to show in WWE. So then I began to look at why am I doing this? Why am I drawn to this? Why do I now have passion for this as well as WWE? I love to tell stories. I don't want to go into the octagon. I want to go into the ring because I love telling stories through action. And I love those narratives. It is like a mini Fast movie. We use to our disposal. We use the greatest tools we can to make the most mythical come to life. And that's what I enjoy. And once I found out I could be comfortable in different characters and be more vulnerable and take more chances, I really have now a passion for making film and making content and making TV. It really, I just did it for the wrong reasons. And I did it for what I felt was the right reasons. If we could make movie stars out of WWE performers, more people would come to WWE events. But all those times I was sitting idly on a movie set from 2004 to 2009, I wanted to be on the canvas. I wanted to be in the ring. I was a young man, stronger than I've ever been in my life, feeling invincible. And I was in a craft that I felt comfortable, that I felt I was gaining my 10,000 hours. So I felt at home. And then I have to be drawn to these sets it's a very patient process, and one that I've had to develop my own perspective towards. But as a 20 something and a 30 something, living the life of go to a different city every night, tear it up. Everybody's excited you're there, and then do it again and again and again and again, 5 nights a week, every week, 52 weeks a year. Man, I just wanted to be there, and now physically I'm a little different. Mentally, I'm certainly a lot more wise. I have a different perspective on everything. And I do love the nuance of film, and I respect the nuance of film. I understand why it takes so long to hang that light. And I respect it because it's supposed to look a certain way. And when you watch it on screen, it does feel a certain way. And I've been a part of a lot of bad movies. So like when you try to rush the process, well, you get what you get. So once again, I think through failure, I found out who I am and what I'm passionate about. And it's amazing you say that, because I remember that conversation vividly that I had with the one person who is kind of my one-man team. And I remember being like, yo, we're never doing movies again, are we? And he was like, you're right. And here we are. It's on an overnight sensation that's taken us 20 years.
You said like it's obviously been a process of like, I guess pun intended, like people seeing past just, the John Cena they've come to know, from WWE. And I remember I felt like Blockers was a big step, because it's like, obviously he's like, this massive man on screen, but like also he just seems like a suburban dad who's worried about, his daughter having sex on her prom night. So like, do you feel like you've kind of moved past that? You've been able to shed that, or is it still kind of a, ever evolving thing?
Man, I hope I never move past it. Perspective is everything. And yes, I think we all have this intrinsic force that we want to be known as our entire selves, not just for what people may think. And that regardless of profession. I think we all want to be known for who we are as a whole, rather than just a section of, I give you something and you judge who I am off of that something. That's very difficult sometimes. The internet introduced me to a whole new generation of fans, which has allowed me to do what I love for longer than I should be able to do it. That's amazing. And I never, ever want to shake the ball cap wearing t-shirt, double wristband, jorts, sneakers, John Cena. Like, that character took me 20 years to evolve. I think a great parallel, especially pertinent to this conversation, would be to ask Vin if he ever wants to shed himself of Dom Toretto. Now, the Dom Toretto arc, cycle of life, everything comes to an end, but I don't think he'll ever get tired or fed up with being known as Dom Toretto, because he knows the contribution and his work is stuck with people. And that's what we try to do as entertainers. We tell story after story after story and hope something sticks. I did set a difficult hurdle for myself by playing one character for 20 years. And that was tough to kind of jump out of. And it took about 10 years for that to matriculate. But I never mind it. I hope I never shake it. Like, it's part of me. It's part of who I am. It's been a major part of my life. And I just hope my contributions to these characters, to Jacob or to Peacemaker or to the dad in Blockers or whomever it may be, I hope people just get lost. And I think that's been my main focus of what I'm trying to do, is so people don't look up on the screen and be like, yo, the car is driving itself. I hope they just get lost in the movie. And then if they want to make the joke, a couple of days after they see the movie. But my biggest obstacle now is to have them just get lost in the experience of the movie.
Talking about evolution for yourself, was there anything in this movie, because it sort of requires you to be a big action force, but also there is that undercurrent of family and pathos throughout these movies? Was there anything about that did you discover new parts of yourself, I guess, or like what you are capable of on camera, working with these different people who have been in this world a long time?
So I believe that we don't find opportunity. I believe opportunity finds us, and you just have to be prepared and be brave enough to take it. Fast found me at the right time in my life, a time where I certainly am much more vulnerable, I'm much more expressive, I'm much more comfortable about leaning into the uncomfortable. But I'm also who you've come to see in your living room every Monday and Friday night for a long period of time. There's also that side to me as well. So I think combining the two elements I really had a lot of fun diving into sibling relationship and blood family at its core, and struggles between people who bear the same last name. I was kind of on that path of discovery before being invited into Fast, but I really got to accelerate that process, because the story was about, essentially, I got 4 brothers. I can snag little bits and pieces from F9 and put my regular life in there.
We've talked a lot about the excitement around F9, but like for you, knowing it's finally coming and knowing how long, fans have been waiting for this, kind of what would be your message to them as we kind of inch towards the finish line?
It delivers. It's simple. It delivers. And everybody's been patient. And we're at such a good point where we feel people can responsibly and safely go back to the cinema and enjoy. And you want that first experience to give you everything you miss about the movies. F9 delivers, flat out, straight up. It delivers.
It really does. I will say I wish we could have found like a pun or something for F9. You know what I mean? Like a Too Fast, Too Furious type, or Fate of the Furious type situation. I kept brainstorming on my end, but I never landed on anything. So I can't also be mad about it in that way,
Well, maybe someday we'll talk again about another one that'll have a different title.
I've been joking. I didn't come up with it. I feel like Fast 10 has to be like Fast 10 your seatbelts. Like that's just like sitting there. That's a layup, right? Like let's put that out into the universe, and hopefully Justin brings it home. Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time. We love nothing more than talking about these movies, so we really appreciate discussing F9 with you.
Thank you.
Awesome, man. Thank you so much for the time. Have a great rest of the day.